This is you, a pro BedWars player, but the skills I'm going to be teaching you are some that even the best of players don't know, and by watching this video, I can guarantee you will become much better at the game. Now this first skill is one of the most useful ones, and that's the ability to utilize both third and first person. If you watch any pro BedWars player, you would notice that they switch between these modes when taking PvP fights, and this is because that's the best way to play. Third person is just better for sword fighting, while first is better for building, because the honest truth is that you can't just use one. Now this next skill is so important, which even the best of players don't do, and that's your hotkey settings. If you have not changed this, then you are doing things wrong, because these settings are an actual godsend. Now when changing these, you want to make sure that the most important stuff is as easy for you to press as possible. I have my 6, 7, and 8 keys all set to letters close to WASD, because it's much easier to select, but there are even more important settings which we will be talking about later on. Do you ever find yourself being chased and it really seems like the end? There is a skill so important that it will single-handedly save your life, and that's the ability to escape fights. By learning parkour and building strats, you can escape almost any situation. Take for example this fight from tanqr. He gets low, so he jumps down and places a block, allowing him to easily avoid the incoming damage. Now he builds up to avoid them digging down to him. By maintaining blocks, you can quite literally escape almost any situation. And that was just 3 of the 32 skills I'm going to be showing you today, and they will only get more useful as the video goes on. Do you ever find yourself in a situation where the person you're fighting has way better gear than you? You might think it's over, but there's a few ways you can better your chances of winning. You probably know of a thing called block decay, where the map slowly falls apart after 20 minutes. But did you know that this can actually be used to give you a huge upper hand? By stacking up on telepearls, you can run away and wait until they inevitably fall into the void. Not to mention, block decay doesn't affect the middle until very late game, so you can camp mid and bow your enemy from way out. Now there's a mechanic so important, which by learning will give you a huge advantage over your opponent, and that's the healing system. BedWars has it to where you heal after 7 seconds of not taking damage. This is something that you can use to your advantage. Here's an example. I begin fighting this player with better gear than me. I get him to about half and then run away. I stop his healing with snowballs, and now I'm able to heal while he isn't. I then heal back to full HP with him still being low from the fight, and now I can finish the kill without risk. This mechanic allows for you to win any fight by just stopping their healing, and this is also why Frosty is so annoying to play against. But this next tip is way more important, and that's the various different tools you can use to make your game as fast as physically possible. Things such as FPS unlockers and ping boosters will all make your game run much faster, not to mention macros and custom cursors, which are both generally good to have. The skills to come are some of the most important things which even the top players don't know. Also at 40k, I'll be happy, so consider subscribing. Ping, also known as the server region you get put into, is arguably the most important aspect of any PvP game, and BedWars is no exception. Ping is the amount of delay your game suffers. More ping equals more delay, but what's more important is understanding the server regions you get put into and changing your playstyle accordingly. An example of this would be to buy diamond armor instead of a crossbow on a higher ping server, as landing bow shots is practically impossible on higher ping, and the diamond armor would probably serve much better. Now the next trick is one you wouldn't think would work, and that's aim. Not bow aim, but aim with your cursor. In other words, putting your crosshair on your opponent while sword fighting. This is actually one of the most important things you could do in this game, as it gives you significantly more range and allows you to land much more shots. This works similarly to breaking beds, where putting your mouse directly on it will break it slightly faster. You can do this through many ways, but the easiest one is to just use first person or shift lock mode, as your cursor will automatically be put on the person you're fighting. This is the brand new training room, and you guys have likely played it from time to time, but did you know that this is one of the best places to train your aim? Since there are moving targets, you can build far out and shoot long range. You can also train aim with fireballs and many other things. Do you ever play BedWars and finding yourself getting outgeared by other players? Well, there's a skill which is even more important than PvP ability, and that's resource management, also known as the ability to get good gear in the shortest amount of time. And while a lot of this does come down onto your kit, and you can still stack up by not wasting iron on swords, and instead only using what you absolutely need and hoarding the rest. Whenever you rush someone, you would ideally want to have 0 resources and have it all in the personal chest, as if you were to die you lose nothing, and the person who defeated you gains 0 resources. Not to mention that if the person outgears you, you can quickly store important resources and reset, but these skills are nothing in comparison to what's to come later on, so trust me, you do not want to miss it. Earlier I talked about the importance of hotkeys, but there are a few other settings which are just as important. Going into your BedWars settings, you will see that you have the ability to change your FOV, along with many other things. You want to make sure that this is fully maxed out, as it will give you the farthest view of everything around. Going into Roblox settings, you will see that you have the ability to change your graphics, which will heavily reduce lag, and depending on your device, I would say go 3 bars at the lowest and 6 at the highest. But easily the most important setting is turning off chat. If you're someone like me, you probably get infuriated at the constant toxic players, but with this setting all of that goes away. You can do this by going into your privacy settings and turning the chat option to no one. Trust me, this is very worth doing. Now let's look at a skill which is even more important, and that's the PvP method you use. Many of you probably just click as fast as you can and pray you win, but that is one of the worst ways to PvP. So what should you be using? I tested every single PvP method and found 8 CPS to be the best, which pretty much looks like this. This will allow you to get the best combos and will win most of your fights. Now while you obviously can't click at this exact speed, you can get it close by practicing your PvP, or by just using an auto clicker, which is what most players use at this point anyways. Now there's a tip so important that it could single-handedly decide whether you win or lose matches, and it's the kit you decide to use. Now I won't be talking about which specific kits are good, but rather what you should be looking for in kits, and this is entirely dependent on the PvP advantage it gives, and the game mode you're playing. A farming kit, for example, probably wouldn't be best in long-run game modes, as it takes longer for their ability to be useful. PvP kits would serve better in short game modes, like Win Streak 1v1, as you get their full ability right from the start. Now the skills we've talked about so far are ones requiring you to actually play the game, but there's a skill even more important, and that's the ability to analyze the gameplay of pro players, or just by watching pro players like tanqr or Million. This is useful because it allows you to look at many different playstyles and learn different tricks that you might not have already known. But the final skill is the ability to click the video on the screen. Well, that is if you want to. But anyways, thank you for watching.